Hello and a hearty welcome to Research Live. Coming up in this edition is a discussion on how to lay career paths, particularly developing research profile. And we're pleased to have Alison Mitchell, the Director of Development for Vitae. Many thanks for accepting our invitation today and welcome to Research Live once again. Let's start with probably a question on the minds of many early career researchers, and that is, how can one develop the academic profile?
I think that's a very small and very big question at the same time. I think it's important these days to consider that developing an academic profile is more than, for example, the pressure to publish. So you start from a point of good research, right? But it's perfectly clear from the work that we've done that to be successful in a research career requires many other skills and competencies as well. And in fact, the Research and Development Framework, which you may be familiar with, sets out the skills, knowledge, competencies of successful researchers. And we worked with the sector to explore with successful researchers what were the competencies that they saw as being important to that success. That then was created through a particular methodology into 1,000 different criteria or descriptors, which were then analysed and condensed into the Research and Development Framework, which is this. Now you will find across universities, particularly in the UK, this is in use. It underpins a lot of development work for researchers. And it has 4 domains and 63 descriptors. Right? And it might be worth just thinking about what those domains are, because immediately when we think about a successful career, we immediately think about what is domain A in the framework, which is knowledge and intellectual abilities. Okay, that we need to understand our knowledge base, we need to be creative, problem solving. These are all part and parcel of the business of being that successful researcher. But actually, in terms of longer term success, the Research and Development Framework breaks that down into other domains about personal effectiveness, research governance and organisation, and engagement, influence and impact. And when we think about aspiring to perhaps be a research leader, leading a research institute, for example, then I would suggest that domain C around research governance and organisation is a very important area to concentrate on. Because actually being successful, running a research group, getting funds, getting published, all these kind of things, is very much like running a small business within a research-focused organisation. And so that's worth looking at. In terms of research impact, which is, I think, globally very fundamental to research nowadays in that context, then domain D about engagement, influence and impact, the knowledge and skills to work with others and ensure the wider impact of research is very fundamental to building that research career. Okay?
I think that everyone will agree that the academic climate is ever changing. But currently, what is expected of early career academics?
I think my question would be, by whom? Right? Because if I say the government and taxpayers, they expect to see impact of your research. If we talk about your supervisor, they expect to see good quality research and high impact publications. You know, if you talk about your peers, then they would want to see collaboration. The institution will want to see kind of benefit to the institution in terms of your work. Industry would want to see innovation and knowledge exchange. So actually, I always come back to the Research and Development Framework again and say, actually pick your focus, because there are many stakeholders in research now, possibly in a way that wasn't so obvious before. But I think that sense of accountability for being researchers is important nowadays. And that very quickly moves us into considerations of our personal integrity, which is in domain B in the Research and Development Framework, and ethical behaviour. So I think that's expected. I think if you look in the European sort of landscape, and in fact globally, close engagement with the public in our research is important, whether it's in the design of the research, the engagement of them within the research process, or communicating afterwards. That is a line that has to be taken right the way through research nowadays. Research is no longer linear in the sense of do good work, publish good work, do more good work, publish more good work. There are many kind of different elements to being successful, and I think that's what early career researchers are being asked to learn and develop. No one would expect anybody to be all of those at any one time, but it's important in your career planning to think about these different elements as you proceed.
Last year, we interviewed Dr. Kay Holm, the director of the graduate school at Brunel, and she mentioned that the researchers need to develop the right skills. Now, we'd like to know, from your point of view, what the skills are needed to meet these expectations.
I think it's important to separate out the key tasks of being a successful researcher. I talked about publishing, project management, fund acquisition. You can list them. I think there's about half a dozen, 6 or so of these tasks. And what you have to do is to create your competencies to sustainably conduct those tasks very well and continuously improve within those tasks. So that's where I think the competencies come from the research and development framework that map into that. So my suggestion would be, because when you look at the research and development framework with its 63 descriptors and you go, either, wow, that's great, that's me. Wow, I didn't realise I could do all these things. And then on the other side is to say, what do I do with this? I'm too busy, I don't understand. I've got this pressure to do something. What am I going to do with this? And so one of the things is to be quite focused and strategic about what you personally want to develop. And that leads us to the consideration of do you have, and this question back to you, a career development plan? Mm-hmm. Do you?
Yeah, I do.
Do you? It's the last thing we do on our list of to-dos. But I think the research and development framework can help to understand what the career development plan might be for you. And the other thing, in terms of making sense of the research and development framework, and I would say that these resources are all available on our website, is to look at what we call lenses, which take a subset of the research and development framework and say, right, if this is your particular area you want to concentrate on, these are the competencies that you should think about developing, right? Either you're developing them through formal training, or you're looking at them through mentoring, or you're looking at asking your supervisor or research leader to help you develop those skills. So how you get them, acquire the skills, is different. So I have a few here. This one, which you can look at, is employability. And I don't know if you can see, but it takes a subset of the RDF. And the reason I bring that one out is, do keep an open mind in terms of your careers. And bear in mind that just under 50% of doctoral researchers will move out of academia and find very successful careers elsewhere. So don't put all your eggs in that one basket of that academic career. Think more broadly about how your competencies will meet the needs in other areas as well. And we have a lot on our website about CVs, career destinations, and I would recommend to you the What Do Researchers Do series that shows those incredibly exciting career pathways that sit outside academia as well as inside academia. But in terms of making sense of it, this one is a lens around knowledge exchange. So if that's your priority at any one time, have a look at those competencies. See, benchmark yourself. How am I in these competencies? How do I feel about it? And this one, again, is maybe interesting to you because many early career researchers are keen on teaching, as building their competency around teaching. And this lens maps to the UK Professional Standards Framework from Higher Education Academy, which we did with them jointly, which shows how you can benefit both your teaching and your research from crossing that boundary between teaching and research. So in a sense, I would say that researchers are always developing competencies. that it's a spiral of achievement, that you revisit things and progress, and that those competencies are very important both inside and outside of academia. Okay.
You just mentioned flexibility. Which of these domains, if any, would you recommend could help in achieving that flexibility?
Well, if I go back to the employability lens, right, and I'm sure you see this, and it's too much for you to absorb at the moment, but spend some time with this. Now, this was built looking at the competencies that employers outside of academia saw were important. We looked at 6 major surveys of different kinds of employers from different sectors. And these are the researcher competencies that are seen for successful careers or starting successful careers outside of academia from an employer's perspective. So if you are thinking about flexibility and you have your eye on an academic research career, then you need to think about the domains more holistically and build various aspects of that. But at the same time, I would recommend that you always cross-check to the employability lens to say, well, okay, I'm developing these competencies within the research environment. How would that play out in another sector? If I went into a research-intensive company, an SME, I went into policy, I went into the public sector, I went into a big organisation, how could I evidence these skills when I'm out there? And that leads me to suggest that what's important with the research and development framework is not just identifying where you want to concentrate, where you feel you are in terms of those competencies, but find ways to evidence that you have that competency. Right? Now, creating that evidence is very important, not just for thinking about a broad spectrum of career options and how you might present yourself to a wide variety of employers, but it's also important in terms of your, I don't know how you might do a performance review, annual review with your supervisor or your principal investigator, to talk about the evidence you have that you are developing the skills of a successful researcher. So it's not enough to say, I don't know, I'm great at team working. Right? It would be, I'm great at team working and I can evidence this because I worked in your research team, I set up this group, I led this group, I worked for something else in the university as a consultant, whatever it is, you have to evidence it. And that then becomes part of your personal portfolio for your career development.